Well, Algebra 2, this video is a refresher video on the square root method and goes along with the remediation worksheet for Unit 5, Section 1. So let's go over a couple examples on the square root method. First one we'll look at is 9b squared minus 4 equals 5. The first thing, or what we're trying to do, our first step when we're working on the square root method is we want to get our squared component by itself on the left side and a number, a constant, on the right side. So we want squared component equals a number. So first thing we have to do when we look at our equation, identify is what is that squared component? What is it that is being squared? So when we look at this, square, of course, is that exponent of 2. Does it belong to b or does it belong to 9b? It belongs to just the b. Now, if this 9b were in parentheses, then the 9 would be included in that squared component. Basically, the rule is the exponent belongs to whatever is directly to the left of it. So in this case, b is directly to the left of the exponent of 2, so b is our squared component. If it were written like this, what's directly to the left of our exponent of 2? The parentheses. That means the parentheses is our squared component. If it was written like this, but it's not. It's written like this, so we want to get our squared component, which is b squared. We want to get that alone on the left side, and we want that set equal to a number. So what do we do first? We add 4 to each side, and we will get 9b squared equals 9. Our 4's cancel out, and 5 plus 4 is 9. To get b squared by itself, we then divide by 9. Our 9's cancel out here, and just so happen to cancel out on our right side, so we get b squared equals 1. Now, we're solving this for our variable, so we're solving for b. So if we're squaring b, to undo that, we're going to take the square root of it. So the square root of a square, that's going to end up just being b. Now, we're going to take the square root of 1, which we all know the square root of 1 is just 1, but when you're taking the square root of a number, you have to include that plus or minus. So if you think about it, positive 1 times positive 1, yeah, that equals 1. But negative 1 times negative 1, that also equals 1. So that's why we have a positive and a negative for our answer. So our answer for this example of 9b squared minus 4 equals 5, when we use the square root method, we get b equals plus or minus 1. Let's go on to another example, second example on the square root method. And we'll be looking at k plus 6 inside parentheses squared equals 36. So we want to end up with squared component equals a number. So what do we have to do here? Well, first thing we do is we identify what's the squared component. What is it that's being squared? And we do that by looking directly to the left of our exponent of 2. And what's directly to the left? The parentheses. That means the parentheses is our squared component. And we want to get squared component equals a number. So what do we do here? Well, we don't have to add 6, subtract 6, divide by 6, anything like that. Our squared component's already here. We have squared component equals a number. That's our goal. So what we're going to do is now we're going to take a square root of each side because we want to get rid of that squared part. And a square root of a square, well, that just cancels out and you're left with our base equals the square root of 36. What is the square root of 36? We all know that's 6, but let's not forget when we're taking the square root of a number, we have to include that plus or minus. Now we have an interesting situation here, k plus 6 equals a plus or minus 6. That's kind of a messy equation. So we're going to break it into two separate equations. We have k plus 6 equals the positive 6, and over here we're going to use that negative 6, so k plus 6 equals a negative 6. So we had plus or minus 6, here's our plus 6, here's our minus 6. Now we solve each one of these equations individually. We're going to subtract 6 from each side, so we'll get k equals 0. And over here, when we subtract 6 from both sides, we get k equals negative 12. So both of those serve as our answer for this one. K equals 0 and k equals negative 12. So hopefully these couple of examples refreshed your memory on the square root method. So use this to complete that remediation worksheet on, I believe this one's over the square root method and completing the square. We'll have a separate video for completing the square. But those two videos together will help you complete that remediation worksheet and successfully completing that remediation worksheet will earn you the right to retake that section of the exam. If you have any questions, please email me.